Alrighty, welcome to the initial installment of Snowman's Garage. This is going to be a series showing some do-it-yourself projects. We've got ourselves a sandrail project right here. We've got a motorcycle in the various stages of overhaul. It's actually a good running YZ85, just getting a wintertime tune-up. And then we've got a crazy tracked vehicle device. This is a non-running project. It used to run, I'm told. Our next door neighbor gave it to us. It was a project that he put together. It's got an 8 horsepower Tecumseh motor. The tracks are off of it right now. They're stored in a box across the room. Uses a couple of levers like a bobcat for control. In the back end, we've got a live axle driving the tracks with a differential, and it's run off a jack shaft from the engine, and it even has a differential on that axle. I think I might have just said that. But first, let's talk about this sandrail over here. We've got this buggy that we also inherited from the next door neighbor. This thing was originally set up with a handlebar steering. The steering shaft that you see on there right now used to be vertical. It was mounted pretty much in the same location on the bottom of the axle, and it used to be bolted down vertically to the axle, and like I say, with a handlebar on top, like a motorcycle handlebar. And we changed the rake of the steering, put it back into a more normal angle for a go-kart style thing, put the wheel on it, got rid of the handlebars. We had the thing running. My son got it all together. My son is kind of the master mechanic around here. He's learning. He's 13. And this project was one, like I say, that we inherited. When we got it, it had pretty much the frame, the 4 wheels, and the motor, but nothing was connected, nothing was assembled, and the engine was brand new, actually. It's a Harbor Freight engine. Didn't look like it had ever been run before. So we had to go ahead and get this thing figured out how we're going to put it together and get it running. The drivetrain is a solid axle, live axle, and it's got a 60-tooth sprocket on the left rear wheel. So again, it is a live axle, so it's, but without any differential. It goes forward very well. It doesn't turn so well. And the other issue we had was the location of the motor. With the tires being the size they are, if we had the engine down on the frame, the clutch would be hitting the tire. So we had to raise that up. So the initial idea was just throw a couple 2x12s in there to get the proper spacing, and you know, maybe we would change the frame out at some point later, but right now that's working fine. However, we do have a slight problem right now. Notice there's no belt. This has a torque converter belt drive from Comet, and it was working great until yesterday. We fried the clutch, or not the clutch, but the belt. Completely shredded the belt. My son's been out racing around in the snow, chasing his buddies on their snowmobiles and just doing donuts and drifting this thing around. It's turned into a really good drifting project. So we got to do some work on the back end. We also have to do some work on the front end. The steering and suspension are really poor. Well, there's no suspension. It's solid axle. It actually looks like the original design of this thing was a garden tractor axle. And so as such, it has no caster whatsoever. So the wheels just kind of want to flop left or right. They don't want to just track straight and true. Even when you're going straight, they want to flip left or right. And there's very little leverage with this steering linkage as it is. Even with a 12-inch steering wheel, you need about a 20-inch steering wheel on this thing to probably get some good steering leverage with it. The little kingpins here from this old garden tractor axle are probably rusty as well, which is not helping things. But it's also very short wheelbase here. So one of the ideas we have here is to go ahead and actually cut the front axle off completely, and basically cut the frame off right there behind the axle, get rid of all of that stuff, everything up front, and build a new double wishbone suspension to put on this front end. So actually give it some travel, cantilever shocks, and a rack and pinion steering, and extend the steering column out a little bit as necessary. even considering doing something like maybe using maybe a Volkswagen steering box or something. Definitely want to improve the steering ability of this machine, and that'll help. Right now, my son, who's only 5 feet tall, he sits here on the seat. His feet are going across the front axle to the gas pedal, right down here. And so, in order for us to have any kind of suspension, travel, we need to move the whole front axle forward to get his feet behind the axle instead of over the axle. That way we can get in some wishbones and get that suspension moving and working for us. So right now that's the project. Once we get that front end done, other plans down the road are going to be get the rear axle and do the same thing in the back. We want to extend the rear axle out the back, drop the motor back down to the frame, so we'll lower that center of gravity about 3 or 4 inches. And then with the extended rear axle in the back, we want to go ahead and put on a swing arm type rear axle so we can actually get some travel back there, or ideally even independent rear suspension. So it's going to be a lot of work, but it's been a good project so far. My son, like I say, he's 13, and he's actually the guy doing all the welding on this thing. So I can actually zoom in on some of his welds, and up here on the seat, for example, he just kind of welded up this little seat pan. And so he's doing a good job. He's actually getting it figured out for a kid who's never had any formal training. I've never had any formal training. I just showed him how to turn the machine on and kind of how to set it up and set him free on it, and he's been doing the work. So it's been kind of a good learning experience for him. So not only is this going to be a little hot rod project, but it's kind of a homeschool project as well for my son. So it's a good thing for kids to do, get them out of the house, off their computers. This is Snowman signing off. We'll update you as we make progress. Check back soon.